we are, and we should, denounce the terrorism against civilians as a crime, then in the same breath, we should also condemn any action by any state against civilians as well.
We're in the ASA, so the Arab Student Association, and we had some input in putting this together. There was a Israel panel about a month ago, and we thought it would be a good idea to also have one about Palestine so that we can talk about both sides of this conflict.
Even though we obviously have grown up knowing about the occupation and the situation in our countries, I thought it would be a good idea to get like a professor's perspective on the history of Palestine.
Thinking about the conflict in a binary way is missing a lot of the situation on the ground. And so I wanted to suggest that it is very hard to pull apart and to say that one is the absolute villain and one is the absolute saint.
Violence, most unfortunately, has been the defining dynamic between the Israelis and the Palestinians for almost all of their related and very intertwined histories since at least 1948. One of the things that would help people understand any conflict is the choice of the starting point. So, if you start for example, the history of what happened between Hamas and Israel on October 7, obviously, it is Hamas provoked and Israel retaliated, and that's the end. But if you take the story back in time, then you complicate it. So this is where historical knowledge is really, really important.
The facts are there, the facts of the Nakba in 1948, the occupation, the apartheid, it's
been documented.
It's been documented, and many even Israeli historians do say that Israel is an apartheid state.
That's the great thing about being here is you have students who aren't just Jewish but are Israeli, who were born in Israel, who grew up in Israel. You have students who aren't just Arab but are Palestinian, who come from the Palestinian diaspora there.
Personally, I know a doctor in Gaza who's an extremely close family friend, and so when we get phone calls, him saying I don't know if I'm gonna make it out, I don't know if I'm gonna live. He's a British Palestinian, also having family in Syria who are also getting affected by Israeli bombs. This is honestly has been the only thing that's been weighing on my mind.
I am a Muslim, I'm a scholar of Islam here, but I'm not a Palestinian, I'm not an Arab. I was born in Pakistan, I grew up in Toronto. But I've been to Gaza. I was in Gaza in 1988, and you saw what was happening then.
Having Najwa al-Qattan, a historian who specializes in this area, having Gil Klein, who's an Israeli, who's Jewish, who can talk about this, having me as someone who's not an Arab or a Palestinian, but as someone who understands something about the history and who's brought students there, I think that really helped our students to understand the complexity.
I think it was wonderful to have these two next to me and know that we love each other, we support each other. But I also thought that it is very important to be genuine and honest to the fact that I'm torn in many ways. But I decided very early on that I will not be trying to tiptoe around my pain and my anger about what was done on October 7th by the Hamas.
What I really loved about the event last night was that you had, people with very strong opinions be able to discuss them in a good way. Doesn't mean you don't disagree. Doesn't mean you don't think the other person is completely wrong and you're right. But how do you engage that without shutting it down, and having a multiplicity of perspectives, I think, is so crucial.
The instinct to act on our anger is truly understandable in these situations, but I think that we have the duty of dealing with each other with care.
Indoctrination is easy. Education is hard. That's what we do here at LMU. That's the education. That's bringing in diverse perspectives. That's bringing in perspectives that may be hard to hear. If you're a Palestinian Arab student, it may be hard to hear about Israeli suffering, because you're not paying attention to Israeli suffering, you're paying attention to Palestinian suffering. If you're a Jewish Israeli student, it may be hard to hear about the things that, your country has been doing that aren't good, But I think hearing those different voices, hearing those different perspectives, I think that's what was really crucial.
It really was wonderful to see how much interest there was, and also how I think respectful the whole tone of the audience and the panelists was. I think it was a great success in that sense.
I was so excited to have this panel and have like a different perspective on what really is happening, and like seeing people coming to learn, or maybe just coming to listen or to do whatever, but seeing the amount of people that like spilling out of the room, I was really happy.
There's only so much we can do as students. We can learn about the history, we can support the people in our direct communities, and we can just like uplift the voices and the products of local Palestinian businesses. However, if you're an American citizen, you have the direct opportunity to vote and be represented by a representative. This opportunity to protest is also not afforded to all international students. So if you have the chance, please do reach out to your representatives and ask them for a ceasefire.
We live in the United States, where it's very easily accessible to educate yourself, to be able to talk to professors, to be able to access the library we have, access the internet. So many things are readily available at our hands, and I feel like it's a privilege to be able to do those things. So I just hope that after this, people will be willing to learn.
You want to hear about what's happening with Palestinians? Read the poetry of Mahmoud Darwish. You want a great Israeli take on this? Read Amos Oz, A Tale of Love and Darkness.
Watch documentaries. Documentaries are very good in representing, in a very responsible way, perspectives of different groups within this place.
But I would say that, the younger generation, it is really now, your turn to try and leave the world a better place than what we have left you with. So I would say, keep educating yourself, which is your job as college students, and keep active, not necessarily perhaps, with the Gaza issue, but with any issue of social justice, because these are all interrelated. If you care about Black Lives Matter in America, or about the rights of any minority at any kind of level, sexual, ethnic, religious, you would care about, Gazans.
But there's so many ways for our students to get involved here, precisely because this is an educational institution.
We have to ask questions like, why are Palestinians refugees in their own country? Why is all this violence happening? Why can't they get along? Why? I think that's the most important part, and I hope that students will reach out and do some digging and exploring themselves.